In this video, we're going to talk about accessibility in Scotland. We're going to meet a fascinating guest, and all that's going to happen right after this. So I have with me today Steven Chalmers from Altogether Travel. He's visiting us from Scotland.
Hello.
And so, Stephen, tell us a little bit about your background and where you are and what you do.
So I've always worked in social care. I've always been in the care sector since leaving school. And 10 years ago, I set up Altogether Travel. So Altogether Travel is a combination of a travel agent and a care company combined together. And we can help someone find accessible accommodation. We can book it, we can book attractions, we can book the travel for them. We also provide a travel companion service. So if people need assistance to take a flight somewhere, we can be that assistance. And we also provide holiday companions. So they're care workers. We've got 16 care staff who go on holiday with our customers and provide that support and care they need at a holiday destination of their choice anywhere in the world.
So I think that's pretty amazing. As we went through this before this interview, I love the fact that for people that can't travel by themselves, that you have a service that helps with that. Because again, a lot of times people think just in general, if they face challenges traveling, that they just can't travel. They can't do it. And so you open the doors for people, I would imagine, to enjoy some amazing vacations.
Some of our customers, once they've found us, they'll say they've not had a holiday for 10, 15, 20 years has been the most. Someone who is elderly couldn't have a holiday because they acquired a disability and older age and they thought their holidays were finished. But no, we make that happen again and they can get to see the world and or even revisit places they once went to a long time ago. They can then do that again. So it's great.
Yeah, very nice. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, we were talking about the fact that it's good for the person and it's got to be a great job for the caregiver as well.
Honestly, our staff say that's the best job they've ever had. They're all experienced care staff, but this one they get to go on holiday, they get to meet nice people, go to nice places and have a nice time. What's not to love about that? It's a great job and we have literally been all over the world. We do lots of holidays in Scotland, in the UK, but Europe as well, or America, or Australia. It's the customer. We don't know where we're going to go every year. The customers are the ones that tell us, I want to go to this place, and we make it happen for them. We'll find the trip, book the trip, and provide the companion to make it happen. And what's nice as well is we've got a lot of repeat customers that come back to us every year. So we're trying to use the same staff member again. So they're just building on that previous holiday relationship they've had to go somewhere new. So we've been going 10 years, or some people have been with the same companion for 9 years, for example, on holiday. You can't put a price on that. It's just, we've given something back to people they thought was lost. And it's such a simple idea. It's not rocket science. We've not created some amazing new invention. We've literally just put travel and care together so people can get to go on holiday again. Holidays are something we all take for granted, but until something happens that stops that happening, then people lose that, and that shouldn't be the case.
I do what I do because I'm very passionate about the ability for people to travel. And this started because my wife and I couldn't find answers to simple questions. But those simple questions, when you're traveling in a wheelchair or you're a blind person traveling, you have hearing challenges, those things that are simple to fully able people are very different. If you're not sure that you're going to be safe, that you'll be able to operate in that environment, those kinds of things. So that's why I do what I do. And that's why we're having this conversation, is to share what you do so that people can understand that no matter what their challenge is, there are things that they can go and see and do and enjoy.
Yeah. But we've been going for 10 years, and in that 10 years, it's changed massively, and it's changed for the better. And I think it's only going to improve as we go on as well, because places are realising people's got money to spend. So people with disability, they still want to spend money, they still want to travel. And there's attractions, there's hotels, all these things are now adapting because there's a market there. They can see the market's there. So why would they not want to serve that market? It's great.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Scotland. That's what we're really here for.
Yes,
we've enjoyed this conversation. But now, when I think of Scotland, I think of old buildings and castles and not accessible. And you told me I'm wrong.
Yes, we'll talk about Edinburgh Castle. If anyone comes to Scotland and they go to Edinburgh, Edinburgh Castle's a must. Edinburgh Castle's 1,100 years old. It's very top of Edinburgh. No one can miss it, and it's Scotland's biggest tourist attraction, and it's probably one of the most accessible tourist attractions. Because it's so busy, they've just made the wee adaptations and the wee changes to make sure people can still get to experience the castle as everyone else does. So people's got the same access that everyone else, and it's not changed the character of the building anyway. So it's a must to see.
Yeah, when you told me that, amazed me. So let's say that I'm going to plan a trip, and I
Yes.
know a week is not long enough, but there are limits to how much money I can spend on my trip. So I'm going to come over for a week. I'm going to fly. You're in Glasgow, so I'll fly to Glasgow.
Yep.
And so what should I do for that week?
So if you fly into Glasgow, Glasgow is only about 15 minutes away from the city centre, the airport. So a quick taxi ride gets you right into the city centre. And once you're in Glasgow, Glasgow's a fairly small city. So there's loads of amazing buildings in Glasgow. Again, really nice architecture. There's parks, there's museums. I think there's 30 museums in Glasgow. For a small city, that's a lot of museums in the small city. And yeah, there's parks, there's a history of Glasgow, because Glasgow is one of the main cities in the empire. There's London, and Glasgow is the main kind of city in the empire. So a lot of the buildings, you can see the wealth was there hundreds of years ago in Glasgow. It was a kind of main shipping port as well for the world. So you can see in the buildings that wealth has been there, and it's lovely. Glasgow's Scotland's biggest city, and it's also called the friendliest city in Scotland, because people are always welcoming and open to visitors and tourists and things like that.
Okay, so I just had an idea, so let me ask you about this. I know that all the new hotels are going to be accessible, those kinds of things. But are there any, let's say, quaint older hotels that are accessible, so that somebody that has mobility challenges, for example, could come in and find something that has a little more character than the new style hotels?
I mean, so there's hotels in Scotland that are actually castles that have been converted into hotels, or old big houses that they convert, and they're accessible. And again, some are required to do it by legislation, but others do it because there's a need there, accessibility needs. There's a few hotels with overhead hoists, for example, built in. That wouldn't have happened a few years ago. You couldn't have that stuff. So yeah, there's new hotels, there's small hotels, there's boutique hotels, there's luxury hotels. They've all got accessible facilities as a standard now.
All right. Well, very nice. That sounds interesting. I am a fan of the old, and obviously I like my modern amenities. My wife wants to be able to get in and out of the room and those kinds of things. It's nice to see things that have some history behind them, because I won't mention any brands, but a new property that has hotels in all over the world.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, you go in the room, it's the same as it was,
You can be anywhere. Exactly.
the continent you were on yesterday. Okay, so let me ask this about that. Are these the kinds of places that might also have a pub in them?
Yes. In Scotland, you don't go far without getting a pub in Scotland. So yeah, that's never a problem here. There are always pubs everywhere, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. So if you wanted to sample a wee bit of whiskey, or as we would say, scotch, you can find it there.
A very wide selection of them.
Okay. Well, very nice. Okay. So how do I get around Glasgow?
So, I mean, again, every black cab in Scotland is accessible. So if you see a black cab, and you can just put your hand out and stop it, and they've all got ramps built in. So they just fold the ramp down. The driver will do it all for you, so you don't have to do anything. He'll get the ramp, get the chair in, and there's a seatbelt that can link on. All the trains are accessible as well, and the buses in the main cities are accessible. So you can get about. I mean, Glasgow to Edinburgh is 40 minutes. So if you wanted to be in Glasgow and get to Edinburgh within an hour, you can get a train and you're in a different city altogether, and it's fully accessible. The stations are all accessible as well. And in every station there's accessible bathrooms, and some have got changing places. So they'll actually have a changing bed in stations as well now, which is a fairly new development over the last couple of years.
Okay. So I'm in Glasgow. You said there's 30 museums?
Yeah, in Glasgow, yeah.
So Edinburgh Castle, as I was making a list, Edinburgh Castle obviously has got to be at the top.
Yes.
And so as we move down from Edinburgh Castle, both on the list and physically, what are some of the other things I want to see?
Well, if you're driving, for example, or even taking the train, if you leave Edinburgh, so Stirling's very like Edinburgh. Again, it's It's got a famous castle in it, Stirling Castle, where the kind of Braveheart film was, William Wallace, all that was kind of filmed there in real life. Stirling's like a small Edinburgh. That's halfway between Glasgow and Edinburgh, so you can stop off there. Then Glasgow's, it's 15 minutes down the road from Stirling. So in Scotland, a fairly small, compact city. You can country.
Yeah. Okay, so I apologize because I moved Edinburgh Castle from Edinburgh to Glasgow in my question.
Okay.
So okay,
Well,
so let's go back to Glasgow. We'll start with
Yes.
Glasgow. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm in Glasgow, and there's 30 museums. Pick the top 3 or 4 or 5 that you would suggest.
The Kelvin Grove Art Gallery is probably Glasgow's biggest visitor attraction. It's a huge museum. It's been there for hundreds of years, and it's the kind of place that if it's pouring the rain in Glasgow, that's where people go to. Families go there because you can spend all day in it, and it's in a lovely park in the west end of Glasgow. So in the west end of Glasgow is nice as well. A lot of the independent shops there and local businesses and local coffee shops. It's not your big chains. It's more kind of, boutique type place. There's in the centre of Glasgow, there, right in the centre of the city, you couldn't miss it. And outside that's a statue, and it's always got a traffic cone on the head. It's a joke that's been played for years, so you couldn't miss that as well. The Transport Museum is down by the riverside, and that just shows all the various bits of transport that have been in Glasgow for the last few hundred years. And they've also got a tall ship there, which is a few hundred-year-old, and that's accessible as well. And it's been refurbished and modernised so people can get to see it as it was hundreds of years ago. And Glasgow's the kind of place that you can wander about. It's a small city, but there's a lot of things in between to see. So even if you're stopping, you could look and look at that road you never expect to be there. At the top of the city, there's Glasgow Cathedral, probably one of the oldest buildings in Glasgow as well, and you can get to do a tour of that, and that's fairly accessible as well. And it's an amazing building. So yeah.
Okay, and Glasgow is, the way you make it sound is like it's a safe city to be out and about on your own.
It's a small. I think Scotland's friendliest city, Glasgow. That's what it's called. It's very welcoming to tourists. Tourists is its main kind of industry. Glasgow. There's tourists here all year round. It's always hundreds of hotels in Glasgow as well. So it's very well catered for tourists. There's not a street without a bar on it and a restaurant or a eating place. It's just full of things like that.
Okay. So you mentioned entertainment. I mentioned pubs earlier, but besides pubs, what kind of entertainment in Glasgow?
So there's loads of theatres. The theatres are really old, actually. They've been there for hundreds of years. So it's nice to kind of think, right, okay, there's been a shows in here for the last 200 years, this theatre, for example. So, and they've got a various programme on, say, there's cinemas, there's art places with various exhibitions on all the time as well. So it's like any city centre, there's loads of things to see and do. And the problem is, you couldn't do it in a couple of days. That's the only problem.
Yeah, you run out of time before you run out of
things. Yeah.
Well, but that just makes you want to come back.
It's good.
Okay, so let's move Edinburgh Castle back to Edinburgh. And now I've gone up and I've done Edinburgh Castle, and I think you said there's some other things at the top of the hill, and then we'll go down the list. Down the hill, I guess would be a good way of saying it.
Edinburgh Castle's in the old town. So Edinburgh's got a new town and an old town. The old town's been there 1,000 odd years, and some of the buildings are absolutely stunning to look at. And they're still used, the buildings. It's amazing to think, wow, that's still standing. So anyway, outside Edinburgh Castle, you've got the Scottish whisky experience, or the Scotch experience for you guys. And that's got the world's biggest collection of whiskey in it, and they do a tour as well, and the tour's accessible. You can go in a kind of cart thing. The Royal Mile, though, is just full of stunning old buildings. No two buildings are ever the same, just because the way they were built. And there's loads of tours you can do down there on the history of Edinburgh and some of the dark side of Edinburgh, some of the kind of medieval stuff, some of that is there as well. And there's attractions right the way down. There's loads of shops down there, loads of restaurants, loads of tourist shops as well. And at the very bottom of the Royal Mile is Holyrood Palace, which is the Queen's house. If the Queen's in Scotland, she stays at Holyrood Palace, which is there. And again, you can get to go around that. If the Queen's not there, she only comes in is it August, I think she comes, is only month she's ever there. But all the rest of the year it's open to visitors, so you can get to have a nosy around the Queen's house. So the Royal Mile, you couldn't do it quickly because you're always going to stop and see something or be distracted and want to go away and look at something. So you could spend all day just going down there. It's a cobbled street, so it's very old and big stones. But there's also a path next to that as well, so you can get to go on the road if you want, or you can use the path. Or if you're going back up it, get a taxi, up one of the buses. That would be far easier. So.
Yeah, you mentioned that the hill's pretty good. So if you had a scooter, wouldn't be too bad, maybe. But
yeah.
Going up would be a taxi ride up, and then a slow coast down.
A leisurely walk down the hill. So
yeah. Okay, that sounds like a lot of fun. So let's say I spent a whole day there. I got one more day. So what else am I going to go look at in and around Edinburgh?
Well, that's the chat. So you can down to the new town of Edinburgh, and again, that's maybe built 17th, 16th century. The new town, a lot of the buildings.
1760. That's the new town.
Yeah, that's new. Yeah. When you see the old town, you'll see the difference. The old town's really old. So that's where the shopping is down there. So lots of shopping malls down there and shops there. And again, you don't go far without seeing a pub or a bar or a restaurant in Edinburgh. They're all over the place. And they've both, Edinburgh and Glasgow's both got the hop on, hop off bus, which is great because you can take that, pay £10, for example, and you get a tour of the city, and it's accessible, and you can get to hear the history of it while you go around. And you can obviously, if you see somewhere you like, jump off, have an explore, and get back on the next bus. And
oh, well, that sounds amazing. Sounds like I would have a lot of fun. Let me ask this: other things that come from Scotland. Let's say that somebody likes to bring things back with them. For those that drink, obviously some scotch would be on the list. But in the way of other things that are made in Scotland, what are some of the other things that people might want to take back?
Well, if you're in Edinburgh, which is Edinburgh's Scotland's busiest tourism place, that's where most tourists go, is Edinburgh, and it's full of tourist shops. So tartan comes from Scotland, bagpipes come from Scotland. So you every tourist shop of tartan, of whiskey, of shortbread. It will have various historic Scotland things with clans and on monsters, Loch Ness.
We'll come back to our Loch Ness in a little bit. I have a question I forgot to ask earlier.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I would think a lot of wools come from wool products.
Yeah, kilts are made of wool, or tartan kilts. They're made from wool as well. So there's a lot of kind of woolen mills that.
So now we want to get out and see a little bit of the country.
Yeah.
And let's say we wanted to go to the Highlands.
Yes.
So Inverness is a good choice?
Inverness is the capital of the Highlands. So that's the biggest city in the Highlands, Inverness. And again, it's probably the busiest for tourists as well because they want to go and see the castles. Once you get up to the Highlands, I think there's 130 whisky distilleries in Scotland, so 130 different distilleries. Most of them are in the Highlands. That's where they'll be. There's not many in Edinburgh, Glasgow area. They're all up north. And I see you've got the castles up there. There's the history. There's the scenery in the Highlands. That's the best thing. I would probably suggest take a train up or the bus because you just see the scenery changing as you're heading up that way. And it's just, it's amazing to see it.
Okay. And so is my memory correct that Loch Ness runs through or close to Inverness?
Yep. So Inverness is the top and Loch Ness runs 26 miles right the way down from it. And it's the deepest loch in Scotland. So, and again, there's a road either side of it. So it's lovely lovely small wee towns all the way down that you can stop off. And there's the Loch Ness Museum, the Nessie Museum's there as well. You can stop off and see if you can see Nessie.
Okay, is there a place where you can get a platform out into Loch Ness that lets you feed Nessie?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there is. Yeah, there's actually on Loch Ness. There's a man who's been there for I think it's 30 odd years. He's lived in a caravan next to Loch Ness, and he's done it for 30 years because he's determined to see the Loch Ness monster. So you'll see him as well. He's famous. He's been there. He's next to a car park at Loch Ness, so tourist buses always stop off there, and this guy's he's a tourist attraction in his own right. This person, he's been there that long.
Yeah. But besides Loch Ness and the things along the loch, there are some other things to see in the Highlands.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, the castles up there are just stunning. So you'll get castles that are on the edge of a loch, for example, and it's a lot of these things are used in movies, for example, just because of the scenery, and it's authentic. It's your talking 1,000-year-old building. It's the history behind it and all the stuff that goes with it. That people, you cannot be not interested in that stuff when you come. So.
Okay. And for doing that, probably either a tour, a hired driver, or if you're brave, drive it yourself with an accessible vehicle.
Yes.
Because that's going to be involving getting off and seeing a little bit.
Yeah. It's that way. You can then stop and start when you want or do different places. You can hire accessible vehicles over here, or you can take the train up, as I say, or the bus, and they're both accessible. From Edinburgh to Inverness is 3 hours. So, but it's a nice 3 hours because you're getting to see the beautiful scenery change all the way up to the highlands and the mountains and things like that. So,
oh, you make me want to come so bad. I was telling Steven earlier before we started that I've watched some shows and I've fallen in love with the Highlands and a lot of things about Scottish culture and the history that are just fascinate me now. I forget the name of the actual castle that was used, but there was one that the Lord of the Manor was filmed up there. And they actually have a bed and breakfast room that you can stay in the gatehouse. So you can't stay in the big house, but you can stay in the gatehouse.
Gatehouse. Well, I mean, there's loads of big old houses up in the Highlands that have turned into hotels now. So they were someone's home at one point. They've now been converted into hotels. And I know you like your cruising, you and your wife. So there's a cruise stop just outside Edinburgh in Leith. Down at the docks, there's a cruise stop just outside Glasgow, and there's one in the Highlands as well. So I think 3 cruise ships do stop off in Scotland, and they'll take people to the various tourist locations that are there.
And obviously, it would be easy for them to have accessible excursions. That is so amazing. Steven, I've enjoyed our conversation so much. And I do want to let everybody know that in the comments or in the description underneath the video on YouTube, you'll be able to find the links to his website. He was kind enough to give me a preview copy of a guide to Scotland, and you have several, right? If I remember right.
Yeah. So we've got one for Glasgow, Edinburgh, Inverness, but the Scotland one just pulled all that together. So it's kind of a one-stop guide almost for accessible Scotland, which is good. There's lots of links in it as well, so people can open the guide, click a link, and it'll take them to various different sections so they can find out what they're looking for.
So you'll want to click on that if you're interested in learning more and visiting Scotland. You'll be able to get in contact with Steven so that he can provide you what assistance that you need. I do encourage everybody, if you look down and your subscribe button is red, that is YouTube warning you that you need to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because otherwise you'll miss out on some good content. And if you've enjoyed this, do me a favor, share it with your friends and share it with people you know that might benefit from it. Because Scotland is an accessible destination and there's some amazing accessible things to see and do there.
Definitely.
And thanks for watching, and we'll see everybody in the next video.
Thank you, everyone.